few simple recipes can take you a long way. Today I'm going to teach you how to make my favorite cheese sauce, which is Lauren Toyota from Hot for Foods, nacho cheese sauce made from potatoes and carrots. I'm also going to teach you how to make an oven-fried tofu. Now with these two recipes, I'm going to combine them and show you how to make one of my favorite dishes. It's inspired by a local pasta restaurant's dish called Sweet Home Alabama. Now the dish that they make is macaroni and cheese with fried chicken pieces on top with a drizzle of barbecue sauce. I'm going to make a similar version using that nacho cheese sauce and using that oven-fried tofu. So the first thing you want to make is the oven-fried tofu because it takes the longest. And I like to use frozen tofu for this. It just has a firmer texture. You want to freeze it for about 24 hours, let it thaw, and then use it as normal. Just is a lot easier to squeeze the water out once it's frozen. So once I've squeezed the water out, I place it between a towel and put a pot over it to squeeze some excess water out. To make the batter, I'm going to use chickpea flour, about a cup, and then about a half cup or so of water. You want it to be the texture of kind of a thin pancake batter or a crepe batter. The thing to remember about chickpea flour is that it tastes really bitter and kind of gross as it's raw, but once it's cooked, it's kind of amazing. So don't taste this, otherwise you'll have the wrong impression of this dish. To spice it up a bit, I'm going to add some Frank's Red Hot sauce, a little bit of salt. Again, don't taste this, just trust yourself. About a half teaspoon or so should be enough. Some fresh black pepper. And then give that a good mix together so that it's all thoroughly combined. Next, I want to set up the breading for the oven-fried tofu. I'm just using about a cup, maybe a cup and a half of panko breadcrumbs here. A couple of tablespoons of nutritional yeast. About a teaspoon or so of paprika. Adds a nice smoky flavor to the dish. Some chili powder to add some more spice, and then onion and garlic powder as well. I'm adding just about a tablespoon of olive oil and mixing around with my hands. What I want to do is get the breadcrumbs coated in the oil as well. It's going to help stick the seasoning to the breadcrumbs, and it's going to help the oven-fried tofu brown up a little bit better in the oven. Once your tofu's had enough time to rest, it's dried out, it's probably going to be pretty dense. And I'm going to slice this into kind of like little finger-sized pieces, cutting in half long ways and short ways, cutting those into smaller thirds, and then cutting those thirds in half again. So set up your dredging station. You have your tofu that's sliced up, you have your batter made with the chickpea flour, and you have your panko breading. You want to make sure that all your tofu pieces are evenly coated in the breadcrumbs. Make sure that they get nice and covered. Maybe even want to press some of those breadcrumbs into the surface of the tofu just so that it's extra stuck. So place your tofu in a single layer on a baking sheet, giving them enough room on each side so that they don't steam, that they can actually get crispy in the oven. I'm adding just a little bit of cooking spray to the top just to help them get a little bit crispy. It's optional, but I think it does help quite a bit. You want to put those in the oven at 400 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes. The next thing that we want to make is the cheese sauce. Now I'm using a modified version of Hot for Foods nacho cheese sauce, which has become my go-to cheese sauce for anything that needs a cheese sauce. What I'm doing here is cutting up an onion. I'm going to use half for the cheese sauce, and the other half I'm going to use raw on the actual macaroni and cheese at the end. For this cheese sauce recipe, you're going to need 1 cup of chopped carrots and 2 cups of chopped potato. And about a half cup of chopped onion. Add those veggies to a pot of salted boiling water and let cook for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally so nothing sticks to the bottom of the pot. About halfway through the cooking, you want to flip your tofu just so they get brown and crispy on all sides. So this is a good time to cook your pasta. I'm using about a half pound of macaroni noodles, and these take only about 6 minutes to cook. Drain your carrots, onions, and potatoes and add them to a high-speed blender. It's important to use a high-speed blender here, otherwise your cheese sauce will come out gritty. To the vegetables, add your garlic powder, onion powder, and salt, about a 1/4 cup worth of roasted red pepper, 2 tablespoons nutritional yeast, about 12 pickled jalapenos with the juice, 4 teaspoons of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons tapioca starch, ½ cup each soy milk and sunflower oil, and a couple of drops of liquid smoke. Gradually bring your blender up to high and let it go until it becomes a beautiful, perfect, uniform, cheesy color. Should only take about a minute or so. When your pasta has finished cooking, drain it and then return it to a pot on the stove. So add about half of your cheese sauce to the macaroni. The other half you can just leave on hand for whatever else you want to use some cheese sauce for. Mix the macaroni and cheese together. If it's not cheesy enough for you, add a little bit more. After all, it's only potatoes and carrots, right? Now it's time to assemble. Add a generous helping of your macaroni and cheese to a nice big bowl. I'm going to add a generous sprinkling of some TVP bacon that I'll link a recipe for below. Some fresh chopped onion, some green onion. Add a generous helping of your oven fried tofu. And then a nice drizzle of your favorite barbecue sauce. And here we have the finished dish. Gooey macaroni and cheese topped with crispy oven fried tofu and a tangy drizzle of barbecue sauce. Let's give it a taste. I want to make sure to get a little bit of everything on my fork. I don't know if you can hear it, but that oven fried tofu is perfectly crispy. There's a spice in there from the nacho cheese sauce, which actually blends perfectly as a macaroni and cheese sauce. I've used it in a ton of different applications, not just on nachos. The barbecue sauce adds a sweet tanginess to the top, and the onions really ground it out. I strongly recommend using the onions on here as well. I added a bit of TVP bacon, which I made, and I'll post a recipe for that below as well, so that you can add that here as well. It's another simple recipe that will take you a long way.